we are able to set intentions of how we want to be today, how we want to be tomorrow, how we want to show up. The past doesn't have to define the future. And if you bring it back to this idea of playing an infinite game, you can take away so much pressure of having to win or lose, or having to please someone, or having to just be attached to something turning out a certain way. I play tennis. I grew up kind of playing tennis. I say kind of, but yes. And around 12 or 13, I started playing competitively. And I just restarted playing. I hadn't really played since kind of high school, kind of college, mostly high school. But I realized, and this is not new, this is what always happened to me historically, is that I am warming up and I'm rallying, just enjoying, hitting the ball well, like I can. And as soon as points start being counted, I just tighten up. I play very, I don't know, forced, and I think 10 points ahead, and I push the ball. I don't even actually hit like I can, and I'm just tight. And, well, one, like I said, I push the ball. I can't even actually hit it like I want to hit it. I hit it at maybe 20% of what I can. But more important than that, I'm not even enjoying the experience at that point, which I think is part of the biggest problem, is that I get so in my head and so caught up that at that point I'm not even playing tennis. I'm forcing something and obsessing over doing it right, over doing it well. And it's like, what is right and what is well? Obviously in a tennis court, you know when you hit the ball in and when you hit it out. But if I'm not even actually playing and having fun, then I'm not getting what I would ideally be getting out of tennis, which is just a good experience, a good exercise. And you know, the metric of the points is hard to kind of stray away from, of course, but I am wanting to peel back that layer of me that makes it like, oh shoot, I have to control this, I have to hit a certain way, I have to win. And it's like, there's no winning and losing, and it's definitely losing if you're not enjoying, or not at least getting to be who you want to be in the experience. And part of the reason why I share this is because it translates a lot into other parts of my life. There are parts of my life where I feel like I can navigate this a lot better and be in the moment and not be attached to the outcome or attached to perfection or the metric of success. But in this case, I very much still am. And for example, in relationships, I still very much am. It used to be more so friendships and romantic ones, but now it's less friendships. Now it's just still a bit romantic ones that I'll come across, you know, people that I like and it's cool. But then when I really like someone, I just lose it. And I become a very insecure, kind of needy version of myself that's very much in the past. And I thank myself for all of that. But again, it goes back to this not enjoying, like overthinking to the point where you're not even in the present moment of what you're doing, and you're not even getting to be yourself in what you're doing, or this version of ourselves that we are now. So we talked about this idea of being engaged in the process but unattached to the outcome, which I love. Like, if it's something like tennis or connecting with someone or making art, if you like the process of what you're doing, why focus so much on what's going to come of it? You know, like that whole idea of perfectionism and putting so much pressure on yourself, like having to win the tennis match, having to make a good piece of art, having to be liked by someone, all of that is kind of ego. All of that is not focusing on just the actual act of doing it. That's very focused on the outcome. So becoming more unattached to what is going to come of what you're doing and more involved in being present with what you have at hand. Okay, speaking of hands too, like sometimes I realize in the past I've lived my life like so anxious and trying to force things and control things. It's like living your life with your fists closed. But whenever you're able to unattach it to the outcome, look, my hands literally open, like let go, open to what's coming, enjoying the present moment. Your hands are open, and it's a very different feeling. Like clenching your fists and like needing something to happen a certain way. That's playing tennis like this, like whenever you can let go, it's like a physiological change just as it is a mental one, of just like being able to keep your hands open, keep your mind, heart, eyes open of like what's in front of you and making the most of it instead of forcing it to be what you want it to be or what you think it should be or what you think it needs to be. Yeah, it's like all of a sudden there's a right way to behave whenever you start overthinking things. But when you peel back that idea of right or wrong or winning or losing or this, and it takes time and it takes cognitive like reinforcement of breaking like old habits of how you talk to yourself. This is kind of crazy because this started just being about tennis, but it is about life. And I don't know if you can relate to this if you're watching or not, but something else that came up was beginner mindset versus expert mindset. And when you're a beginner, the options are many, and you kind of are even so beginner that you might not even know what follows. But when you paint yourself to be an expert, or you paint yourself as if you needed to be an expert or needed to perform at a certain level, whatever that means, the options are very few. And that's when the winning or losing comes into play, and that's when it becomes very like limited in what could happen. But the beginner, you can just play and you could just open yourself up to what's to come rather than trying to see 10 steps ahead as you think, well, you know what's coming. That goes a little bit along with the idea of game theory. I don't know really much at all about game theory, but there's this idea of finite games versus infinite games. An infinite game never ends. A finite one does, as the name suggests. An example of a finite game would be one singular tennis match. But an infinite game is the journey that it is to become the best tennis player you can be. That's infinite, and that's lifelong, or it can be if you want it to be. But when you take the pressure off of the finite games, like one tennis match, and you realize that it's part of an infinite one, which is just improving, it takes a lot of pressure off of the idea that this just ends, because it doesn't. And that's how it is in life. Like I wrote down, my infinite game is becoming the best person I can be. Maybe, this day that I have today is finite. Today will end and I will have to go to sleep. But this was one finite day in an infinite life, obviously, but like an infinite process of many, many days that add up to this more infinite style idea of becoming the best person I can be. So I kind of like that too, because you realize, like, whether it is a relationship or a tennis match, and I keep comparing the two because they are very parallel in my life. I realize that might not be the case for everyone. And the quote of like, how you do one thing is how you do everything applies to a certain extent in this case. I wouldn't say, again, like it's everything, but it is a lot of things. And when you can kind of embrace the idea that if I improve how I show up in this one area, it'll likely improve the amount of tools and the person I can be in other areas. And I literally have so many notes from this one session. Hey, dude, come. You want to say hi? So yeah, I just wrote a little bit more about how like it feels so frustrating that I get so tense and so in my head when I'm playing. But being hard on myself and like beating myself up for feeling so tense, for being so in my head, is actually kind of counterproductive and can reinforce that whole like loop. But little by little, if I can come up with a strategy of saying like, what do I say to myself when I'm on the court and I'm thinking 10 points ahead? Or I'm like, if you lose this point, you're going to lose the game, you're going to lose the match kind of thing. What do I say to myself to kind of break out of that? And I'm going to figure that out. But like something I can say is just like one ball at a time. Because it is like one hit at a time. Like I can't worry about the future to the point where it's going to mess up literally the ball I have in front of me. You can't play the point in front of you if you're thinking about the result of the match. You know what I mean? So bringing myself back into my body and out of my head, what can I physically do in the moment to bring myself back? Well, it's take a deep breath, maybe jump up and down and just bite that train of thought in the butt of like, no, I'm not hopping on that train. I'm focusing on this point that I have ahead of me. And again, that can translate to, you know, sometimes in a relationship, like I'll like think of, well, what happens if this happens and then 5 years, blah, 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 and I'm like already idealizing or obsessing or just in a completely irrational space that is completely preventative of getting to embrace the situation in front of me, getting to know the person, and takes me completely out of just the moment and myself. And that overthinking energy is not like the healthy energy, and you don't have to stay there. I don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay there. Like, by even bringing awareness, if you can relate to any of these things, we are able to set intentions of how we want to be today, how we want to be tomorrow, how we want to show up. The past doesn't have to define the future. And if you bring it back to this idea of playing an infinite game, you can take away so much pressure of having to win or lose, or having to please someone, or having to just be attached to something turning out a certain way. Be a beginner. Open your eyes. Open your hands. Be open to what could come, and just be here. And when I'm saying this, it sounds like I'm telling you. I'm telling me. Yeah, and that's a little bit of what I talked about today. Playing the infinite game. And remember, you're combating years of negative thoughts and stories with positive ones, and that takes time. If that doesn't happen overnight, don't lose faith that you can start rewiring your brain in these patterns. And yeah, the more you can ask yourself, how do I want to be? How do I want to guide myself? And do a little bit closer to that each time, I think we'll all be a little more badass if that happens. And thanks for watching. Right, dude?